All right, good morning. My name is Jeanette, and welcome to our next training session. We're going to be talking about month-end and reconciliation for the Sage 300 CRE applications. As I mentioned earlier, there are some handouts available for this session. If you can have the Word document printed out, we're going to be following along with that handout, and you can take notes on there if you need to. The other thing I want to point out is that we'll have time for questions probably at the end of the session. So during the presentation, if you want to go ahead and type in your questions in the chat area on the web panel, I'll have Tina read those to me at the end of the session, and we'll answer questions then. All right, so I think then let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so again, my name is Jeanette. I'm a certified consultant for Sage 300 CRE. I've been a trainer and a consultant for many, many years. I was an end user back when Sage 300 was actually Timberline and back in the old Burroughs days. So I've been working with the program for quite a bit of time, so hopefully I'll be able to show you everything you need to know for the month end and reconciliation and answer any questions you might have when we get to the end. Our agenda for today, we're going to be talking first about some account rules that I think are pretty important to make your month-end and reconciliation successful. If you're not following these rules right now, this is something that you should put in place. So we're going to talk about those in a minute. Then we're going to look at just a simple reconciliation for both AP to GL and AR to GL. I'm going to show you some reports and what to look for, what to balance to, and then some simple things on how to troubleshoot if things don't line up or balance. We're going to talk a bit about the actual close month tasks. Some of the applications have close months, some don't, and we'll take a look at the ones that do. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at the reconciliation tool that's available on the Sage desktop. So if you are wanting to use that process instead of what we're going to be looking at this morning, it's basically the same thing, but it's all done from the Sage desktop instead of doing it individually in each application. All right, so on page 1 of your handout, the account rules. This is what I want to cover first with you guys to make sure that you are clear on what happens when you're processing within the applications and how it interfaces back to General Ledger, because that's your main reconciliation, is General Ledger to these sub ledgers within the system. And so you want to make sure, like for accounts receivable, you have an AR account that's being accessed every time you run something in either billing or accounts receivable, and you want to make sure that that's the only place that entries come from for that account. So accounts receivable will send information to that AR account when you're in enter invoices in AR or cash receipts, or if you create an invoice in the billing module and send that through accounts receivable to General Ledger, those entries will hit the AR account. No other application should be interfacing to that AR account except those two applications. For your AP account and accounts payable, only AP, the enter invoice and print checks routine. That's the only application and the only two tasks that change invoice as well. Anything to do with invoices or money should be interfacing to that AP account. No other entries should be going there from any other module. For the cash account, you've got accounts receivable, you've got accounts payable print checks, you've got payroll print checks. What I don't have listed here is cash management itself. If you make entries directly in cash management, that will also hit General Ledger. So if you have an entry or some adjustment that needs to adjust your cash account, make sure that you're doing that within the cash management module. Lastly, you have entries that are going to hit your cost accounts in General Ledger. Those all need to be job related. So make sure when you are entering things, expenses, um, anything that has a job on it needs to use a specific cost account that's going to interface to general ledger. And I'll show you what to look for in the reconciliation between GL and JC. That's actually what the reconciliation is. You're looking to see that all cost accounts only have job-related entries entered against them. Okay. And the last bullet that I have there at the bottom, no entries should be made to these accounts in GL. Any adjustments that you need to make, corrections that need to happen to any of these accounts should be coming from the application of origin. Otherwise, as soon as you make an entry in GL to one of these accounts, your reconciliation will then be off. All right, the first reconciliation that we're going to look at is the AP to GL reconciliation. You want to make sure that, first off, you have all entries entered for the month. And then we're going to do this reconciliation manually within AP and GL. We're going to run two reports. One report out of AP under Reports Cash Management using the Aging with Cutoff Date report. And we're going to compare that to the GL balance sheet or the trial balance or the current or year-to-date ledger. We're going to compare the totals there that we get off of our aging report back to the AP liability account. So I'm going to switch over into AP right now. Now, one of the things I've put in the training document on page 1 is you need to make sure before you start, if this is the first time that you're doing this, that you know what your liability accounts actually are. And so one of the things I would recommend that you do at least once is come in here under AP settings. And let me go into that again so you see how I got there. Under File, Company Settings, AP Settings. And you want to take a look at the GL Entry Settings window. And you want to make sure that you've got the accounts noted for accounts payable, commitment payable, and retainage payable. Those are the three accounts that you're going to be checking when you do the reconciliation. You'll actually add the totals for your AP and your commitment payable account together to compare that to the total on the aging report. And then the retainage will be in a separate column by itself. So in our example, we're going to be looking at account 2001, 2003, those two added together, and then separately account 2004. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead under Reports, under Cash Management. I'm going to run the Invoice Aging with Cutoff Date report. And here you want to put the aging date. This will be the accounting date that you are trying to reconcile. So it can be, if you're in the current month, it'll be that month-end date, or if you're back a month or two within General Ledger, you'll put the prior accounting date that you're trying to reconcile to. So I'm going to use May 31st, and 2015, I'm using the sample data for this, and that's the year that this data set is actually back in. Right, we're going to leave the check mark on to print a retainage column because it does have retainage. And you have an option to add the retainage to the unpaid balance column. This is if you're using the same AP account for both retainage and AP. You can add those together so you don't have to manually add them. We're going to leave them separate because we do have separate account numbers for those two amounts. Right, and then I'll just do a print preview to get that report to show on the screen. Let me maximize that, and I'll go ahead and go to the bottom of the last page to get our totals. So we have a grand total here of $351,821.24. So we're gonna look for a combined balance on our financial statement to balance to that number, and then retainage is in the last column, so we're looking for the balance in the retainage account to equal this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring up GL here, and then I'm going to go ahead and just run a financial statement under reports. I'm going to run the balance sheet. I don't need to roll it back because general ledger is actually in the 5/31/2015 accounting period. So I'll go ahead and just say OK on this screen. I've got a prefix group set up for my two companies. And then I'm going to preview that for us. And I'm going to go to the next page. And here are my three accounts. I've got 2001 is my AP account, 2003 is my subcontract account, and then here's my retainage account. So I can see right here that my retainage account balances, because if I look back on my AP report, 13/7/29/08, 13/7/29/08. Now these two numbers here, I need to add those two together, and I need to then balance to this number right here. And I've actually gone ahead and done a calculator here to add those two numbers together, and they balance. So looking at this month in the sample data, I'm in balance. Now in your handout on page 2, I've got an example of where I'm out of balance. So if you look at the top report, the AP column, the unpaid column, comes out to $401,060.54. But if I look at the two amounts in general ledger, it comes out to $400,760.54. So I've got the math for you at the bottom of the balance sheet there. So I'm $300 out of balance. So what I would need to do then is to try to find where that $300 is that's forcing this out of balance. One of the things or actually the first thing that I would have you do is if you take a look at page 3 at the top, in general ledger, I would ask you to run reports, entries by account, and I would run it on the new file. And when you get to this screen, I would go ahead and just leave the accounting dates blank and the ranges blank and just do a print preview here to see what is actually in the new .glt file that still needs to be posted. And in this example, you can see that account 21-2001 has $300 sitting in the new file that is the reason that we're out of balance. So in order to correct this particular example, all I would need to do is run manual post inside general ledger, rerun my financial statement, and it would balance then back to my AP aging report. Now, if you don't find anything in the new file, then your next step is to start running some of the reconciliation reports inside accounts payable. So if I switch back over to AP, there is a whole section of reports here under the reports dropdown, under GL reconciliation, where you can run different types of reports for the AP accounts, for the retainage accounts. You can run a GL verification report that will make sure that everything is posted to the AP account like it should be. There is a AP summary report, which I have an example of that on the bottom of page 3. You just need to give it your accounting date, and if you're doing something in the past, you need to specify the number of GL periods to roll back. This would need to match up to the financial statement if you used a rollback there to roll back to a prior period, would be the same number. And if you look at the top of page 4 in your handout, you'll see that it shows that account 21-2001, it's in red, is out of balance by the $300. So that that's another way to see it prior to running the two reports, the aging report and the financial statement report. Another report you can run is the totals by batch report. And this can be helpful if you don't see anything in the AP summary, if everything there looks fine, or the numbers don't line up to what you're out of balance by. This report gives you a breakdown of the batches for each account. Now this is going to look a little bit funny because my AP actually is in balance. This has to do with the sample database that I'm using. The beginning balances that they entered for this data set don't quite line up, so that's why we've got a bunch of red in here. But in your case, you would run this, and if you take a look at the top of page 5, you'll see this same report, and you'll see that it shows account 21, 2001, and it shows an amount, a credit difference of $300. To look at the batches that make up this, all you have to do is double-click on one of the red amounts, and it will bring you to a sub-report that will show you the batches that have been entered for that time frame to that account. So you'll be able to see anything in red. You'll be able to see not only the batch number, but what program actually created that transaction. And then you can troubleshoot from there. It could be that maybe there's an accounting date problem in one of these batches, where part of it went to 1 month and part went to a different month, and that's what's causing the out of balance. And what we would probably do is do some type of a consulting thing to help you figure out what needs to be done to correct the issue. So again, important that you run these reports and you balance back to general ledger, AP to GL. And one of the things that I would ask you to do also, if you run this and you're out of balance, I would ask you to start going backwards in time and start reconciling from the previous month. You want to isolate where it actually went out of balance. Some customers that I talk to, they'll realize all of a sudden, oh, I need to start reconciling, and they'll run it in the current month and be out of balance and not realize that they were thrown out of balance 6 months ago. So what you need to do is start running these 1 month at a time until you isolate where it fell off the track. And then that's where you start troubleshooting and correcting, and as you move forward, it will bring your current reconciliation back into balance. Okay, let's go back into our PowerPoint for a second. So that is the AP to GL reconciliation. For AR, it's basically the same thing. You're going to make sure that everything has been posted for the month. You're going to run an aging, reports aging by, I would do aging by customer, and then you're going to compare that to your GL, one of your GL reports, either a balance sheet or a trial balance or one of the ledgers. So let's go ahead now and jump into accounts receivable. And we'll go ahead and run that. So we're going to go ahead and start with running the reports, aging, and I always just use the RD reports. They run a little bit faster. So for this part of your processing, I don't think you necessarily have to do a crystal report. Just grab the detail by customer report, run it for the month that you're trying to reconcile. We're going to include a retainage column on this. We only want the unpaid only, and we're not going to include any finance charges in this run. Our aging basis is going to be by accounting date. We're going to compare that back to general ledger. So I'm going to preview that to the screen. And I'm going to grab my total here at the bottom. And then I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to General Ledger. I'm going to rerun my financial statement. I'll run my balance sheet with 0 rollback. I'll grab my prefix group. All right, and then right here, I have my accounts receivable account. And if I take a look at my report here, it balances the 407,036.62. Balances back to 407,036.62. My retainage is 102,522.08. 102,522.08. So for this month, my general ledger is in balance. Now, if, as the example that I have in your handout, so I've got a report on page 5, an aging report. And if I take a look at page 6 at the top, so my general ledger in this example is out of balance by $6,906.22. You see that the balance sheet that I've printed at the top only shows $400,130.40. So there's a difference there. So what I would need to do again is over in General Ledger. Cancel out of here. I would run, very first thing I would do is run reports, entries by account, again on the new file. And what I'm looking for, I want to see everything that's in that new file that hasn't been posted. I'm looking for anything that would hit that AR account. The example in your handout on page 6 shows account 211201 has the amount that I'm out of balance by, the $6,906.22. So again, all I would need to do is, excuse me, manually post in General Ledger, then rerun my financial statement, and I'll be in balance. Now, if the problem is not in the new file in General Ledger, you need to come back into AR, and you need to take a look again at the reports for reconciliation. And we've got a bunch of reports here for making sure that all the entries are AR accounts. There's some batch reconciliation reports that you can run. There's an AR summary report, which is the example I have in your handout. There's also a totals by batch report. And this may have a lot of red in it, again, because the sample data is not exactly in balance here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and print preview that. So there is one here that is out of balance, and this may actually this is okay, because the cash account has information coming into it from all over the place. So not just accounts receivable. So actually, this report is showing us in balance. We don't have any red. So again, if you are out of balance, verify your new file in General Ledger first. If that looks okay, then come back to accounts receivable and start going through these reconciliation reports. It's usually one of two things. Either there's an entry in the new file that has not been posted, or the other thing, and this can be true for both AR and AP. Let me come back to GL for a second. If you run reports, entries, again, entries by account, and this time run it on the current file, if you are looking for your out of balance for AP, what I would recommend is use the ranges button, select your AP account or accounts, then use the condition button, and condition on application of origin not equal to, in this case it would be AP. So we're looking for entries that have been made to this account that did not come from accounts payable. Because remember, that's going to throw it out of balance. Everything hitting that account needs to come from AP. So when I OK that and preview that, see, I've got a beginning balance here, and that's part of where our report looks a little funny in the crystal reports, is because of this entry right here. So you're looking for things that did not come directly from AP, or we're looking for, if this is an AR problem, we're looking for something that did not come from AR. And in this case, I need to add, because what else can hit the AR account? Billings. So again, here's our beginning balance entry. That could be causing it to be out of balance. I actually did correct that. Okay, so two main reasons. Again, entry hasn't been posted, it's sitting in the new file, or entry came from an application that it should not have come from. Okay. All right, let's go back to our PowerPoint for a second. And let's talk about job cost to GL. Okay. You want to make sure, again, that everything has been posted. So you want to make sure everything posted in job cost. We're going to run, or you can run entries by job on the new file to make sure everything has been posted. And then we're going to run the job cost summary report inside job cost to make sure that it balances. Okay, so post everything, verify everything's been posted, then run your job cost reconciliation summary report. Okay, so let's get into job cost. Let's go ahead, we'll do reports, entries by job on the new file. Make sure everything's posted. Okay, so we do have some things that have not posted, but oops, these are all way out in the future. So I think we're probably okay here. Yep, these are all going to reject because they are too far out in the future. So I'm thinking that's what you want to verify, that there isn't anything in here that needs to be posted for the current month. So I think it looks like we're safe. So we're going to go ahead and run reports, reconciliation, JC summary. This is on page 8 in your handout. And we're going to run this from the first of the month to the end of the month. We'll preview that. Okay. So we're looking at our cost accounts here. This is what is showing up on this report. It's gone out to General Ledger and it's grabbed any account that's marked as a cost type, and then it's brought in the balances from General Ledger, and then it's looking at the transactions inside job cost to make sure that those balance. And any difference will be in red. And here we've got an account, we've got a cost of sales account for equipment that is marked as a cost account, but looks like we haven't posted anything to job cost on it. So what we need to do is verify that And we'll do that by coming into General Ledger. And we're going to run, again, reports, entries, and we're going to run this entries by account. And we're going to go ahead, run this on the current file. And we're going to use the ranges button, and we're going to grab the account number that's on our report, which I think it's this one. And then we're going to put a condition on this. We want to see any entries that went into that account where the job number is equal to blank. We'll say OK to that, and let's do a print preview. And we can see that this total here matches up to the amount that we're out of balance. And actually, I should have just done, let me do the date range here. So we only get the month of May. Oops, went past that. Okay, so 39,523, and if we take a look at our report, 39,523. So what's happened here is that we've entered some equipment entries, most likely through equipment cost, and we've entered without a job number. And so that's why this is showing up, and that might be valid. So this is a line then that we can ignore. Everything else above it, these are all job-related entries, and we can see here that there's no activity difference, so we are in balance. All right, so that's actually all there is to the job cost interface to GL. Just make sure that this JC summary report that you don't have any red in here, and if you do, just validate that those are valid entries. All right, our next application is cash management. So let me actually go back to our PowerPoint for a second. All right, so we have some reports that we need to run for the cash management reconciliation. You want to make sure that your cash management balance is balancing to GL. We have a bank account balance verification report that we're going to look at, and then the bank reconciliation report that you need to run. Okay, so this is the first report is at the bottom of page 9. And this report you're going to run under Reports, Reconciliation, and it's the CM balance to GL. And here we can just do a print preview. And what you're looking for here is that your CM balance is actually balancing to your GL balance. Okay. All right, the next report that you should run, if that report does not balance, then the next report that you need to run is also under Reports, Reconciliation, and it is the bank account balance verification. You're going to run this on your register file. This is actually a crystal report. And you're looking for the report or the bank, excuse me, that's not in balance on that previous report. Now, this report is showing our first bank here is in balance. And if you take a look at the variance column here, this is what you're looking for. This variance should be 0. Now, what will cause numbers to show up in here is if you go in and make changes to your within Edit Register after you have reconciled the bank account. Once you do that, that's going to show this or throw this variance column out of balance. The number that should be sitting in your cash management master file is the derived amount. So we have a derived bank balance, we have a derived posted balance, and we have a derived register balance. These numbers need to it does a calculation here to come out to the zero. So it's coming up with a derived minus either a posted number or a register number to come up with a zero. Now, this second bank, we've got a problem here. So when I look at the second bank, I don't think this bank is actually live. It's not live yet, so that's why it didn't show up on our other report. But I would need to go in and correct this. I would need to correct the last reconciled balance and the register balance to get these. Yes.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. We got a question from somebody.
Sure.
Let's see. Is there a simple way to reconcile sales tax payable to GL when we pay we pay sales tax when we collect from our customers, so there could be several months between when the tax is charged and when it's collected and paid to the state.
There are some sales tax reports. So I think this one's question is going to have to be offline. That's a little more complicated.
Okay.
There are some sales tax reports in here. I'm not sure where they are. If they're, let's see. There's some reports in here, but I'm not sure that that's going to give them what they need. They can compare these reports to General Ledger. I think let's get the customer's contact information, and I'll have to get back with them on that.
Okay, that sounds
good. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So back here again, if you run this report and you have any variances on any of these where the variance is not zero, you need to change your master file to correct it. And the way you correct it is manual. You have to come in here under Tools, Options, and you need to turn on Audit Setup Activity. And then you come in on the bank account and you go to the bank account that is incorrect and you make the change. Now, this bank is not active yet, so I can't do that, but on this first bank, I would be able to change the register balance and the bank balance is on this first tab, and then the totals by GL account, by cash account, this is where the posted amount is. And what's down here in the grid should equal what's up here in the CM posted balance field. So these two should balance. Okay, and then lastly, we have the bank reconciliation report. Right. And we'll give this a statement date the same as our month-end date, but you would actually put in your actual statement date there. Right, so here is the reconciliation report, and if we take a look, this number here should match to our GL balance, which it does. The 911,541 actually balances to $511,541. get it all on one screen. Come on. Where are you? Here, 11, 541.07. Ah, come on. There we go. 9/11/541.07. Okay. Now, if this doesn't balance, this is going to be a support call for you guys, because this report is pretty complicated. You just need to make sure, one thing you can look for if it doesn't balance is make sure on the outstanding stuff that you don't have any future stuff in here. There could be some future voids that are interfering with this that you'll need to manually add back in to balance back to that total. So you may need some help with this if the bank reconciliation report doesn't tie out at the bottom. Okay, whoops. Back to our PowerPoint again. All right, so the closed month routines. Let's talk about those for just a second, and then we're going to talk about the job cost. There's one extra report in job cost that I want you to be aware of. All right, so accounts payable for the month end, there is no closed month. AP and AR both are on a year-to-date basis. So other than doing the reconciliation to general ledger, that's all you need to do. There's no task that you need to run. In job cost, there is a closed month. You'll run tasks, close month. And one thing I want you to be aware of is that there is a report that is generated with this closed month that is doing some verifications within your job cost master file. It's actually balancing from the category level up to the cost code level up to the job level. You need to be sure that you look at that report to make sure that everything says it's in balance. If you take a look at page 12 of your handout, I've got a sample of where it doesn't, one of the jobs does not balance. What you should see is a line for each job. Just peruse through that, make sure that every line says that the job is in balance. If it doesn't say that it's in balance, it's going to show you what piece of that job is out of balance. So if you take a look, there's a job there that says total estimated cost. The job is one number, but it's out of balance either at the cost code level or the category level by $2,835. There's a difference there. All right. We're going to go in and take a look at that in just a second, but you need to make sure that you pull that report and you take a look at it and you highlight anything that shows out of balance. Now, contracts also has a closed month task, and cash management does not. It's on a year-to-date balance, year-to-date time frame, just like AP and AR. Now, one thing to note, job cost, you can only go 1 month into the future. Contracts is the same, 1 month into the future. So you've got to be sure that you keep these two applications at least current or only 1 month behind. As soon as you get 2 months out, it's going to start rejecting those entries, and you'll have to manually post those entries once you do close the month. And it's the same with contracts. There is a post routine under tasks. So if you get too far out and you've got stuff that has come through to contracts, maybe through billing, it will not have posted, and you'll have to manually post after you close the month. Okay, now I want to show you, let's go into job cost back into job costing for a second. I want to show you the report that you're going to need to run if you have a job that shows up on the month-end close month report that shows that it's out of balance. You're going to run this close month validation report. Run it on the current file. And you're going to select from here, these are the 4 areas that can be out of balance. So if it's an estimate, like it shows up in our sample, you'll select estimate. And then you're going to select, using the range button, just pick one of pick the one job or jobs that it shows you are out of balance. And then you're going to print that report out. And you're going to look for the areas where it's out of balance. Now, what you're looking for here, as an example, I'm looking to see that my transaction total is equal to my job cost category total, which is equal to my cost code total, which is then equal to the job total. So this may be a little hard to find initially, but you're looking to make sure that all 3 of these values here match. That's the first thing you're going to look for. If you go down the report and they all match, then you're going to look, let's see, darn it. You're going to look, sorry, I've got to drag this panel out of the way. You're going to look for the job total. So you're looking again to make sure that all of these balance. One of these numbers is not going to balance. And that's what you're looking for, is you're looking to find which one of these lines doesn't line up. Once you find it, then the only way that you can fix this is to manually fix it with audit setup activity. So what you have to do is you have to come in with audit setup activity turned on, and you have to go to the record that has the problem. And you'll go into wherever that is, and you'll correct the amount. The reason that you have to do it this way is that what's happened is during a posting routine, the system has hiccuped or burped, and it missed a record. Entering a transaction to correct this won't work because by default, the system is going to update the category, the cost code, the group cost code, the extra, and the job record. You can't tell the system to only do one of those records. So you have to find the record that's wrong, and you have to manually fix it with audit setup activity. Okay. All right. Now, before I go into the reconciliation tool, let me get back here for a second. I want to talk about General Ledger. So General Ledger does have a close month. You're going to make sure that you've got all of your entries for the month have been either entered through record entries or allocated or posted if it's an automatic entry. And then you'll run your final month-end reports, so financial statements, trial balance, ledgers, and then you'll run tasks close month. And it looks a little different than the other applications. It's got more screens to it. So you're going to go to close tasks, close current period. And it's got kind of a little wizard here that it's going to go through. When you hit the next button, it's asking you to verify that you've made a backup. So the important thing to remember about this is when you close the month in General Ledger, it's not just zeroing out month to date. it's actually rolling the balances on those accounts. So if something happens during the close month routine, you can't just fix it with audit setup activity or start the process over again. You have to restore from backup and then run it again. Okay, so just keep that in mind, and it won't let you go forward unless you answer this bullet as yes. And then if you've got prefixes in your general ledger, it's going to want to know if you're closing them all or are you doing just selected ones. And then you'll pick and choose the one or ones that you want to close. And then you can tell it how many months to roll ahead, and then you'll hit the finish button, and it actually rolls the calendar, and it rolls all the activity fields on the GL master file. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't go back and make correcting entries to a prior period. You can. There's an open-close posting period here that you can use. Now, one thing I want to point out that you guys should check on your own systems, under GL settings, under processing options, there is a feature here that says automatically close period. What that means is automatically mark the period as closed. It doesn't mean automatically run close period. It means when I run that step, mark that period as being closed. So what will happen then is if I were to go in and take a look at open close posting period, actually that should be closed, it will have put check marks. When this rolls down and brings in June, this period here will have a check mark on it, which will, if I've got my GL settings set to not allow entries to a closed period, then I won't be able to make entries. So you guys should check that and make sure that you've got all your prior periods marked as closed, and then also make sure that you've got, again, in GL settings, under File, Company Settings, GL Settings, make sure that here you've got this set to automatically close. And then I would also make sure that this is not marked. You shouldn't be allowing anyone to make an entry to a closed period unless it's been approved. Okay. Okay, the reconciliation tool. This is from the Sage desktop. So not all the applications are listed here. There's a dashboard that will actually show you GL, AP, and cash management totals, and you can see where you're out of balance if you are. And then there is individual reconciliation steps for each of the applications listed here. So let's actually go in there. I need to open up desktop. I don't have it open. And one thing about this too, you need to know that this takes up a use of your applications when you're running it. So I'm going to go through here and close out all these modules because I only have one use of each one. So let me close these up. And I'm even going to go ahead and close this TS main. Okay. Okay, so, okay. So the reconciliation tool itself is under the additional tools that's listed under applications on the Sage desktop. And again, you can only run this from the Sage desktop. If you're running TS main, you won't see it. Okay, so you would go ahead and go into reconciliation here, and this will bring up the reconciliation tool. Now here on the screen, you have a reconciliation dashboard. So again, this is going to show you GL, AP, and cash management. So we can run that, and it's going to bring up a crystal report. And let's go ahead and run this for May. Okay. So general ledger is looking good. It's all in balance between the four prefixes that we have. AP, it's got a little bit of a problem, and I would expect that because of the way the sample data is looking. But we already balanced that manually, so we're gonna ignore that for now. And our cash management is in balance here, so it shows the GL totals are in balance. So if we had a valid company data set here, and we found some issues that were out, we could go ahead and start running these separately using the step-by-step analysis section. Notice that each of these applications are listed here, and what we would do is we would just click on the module that we wanted to start with, and then it will show us all the steps, basically the same steps that we just went through one by one. Step one is making sure that everything has been posted, and then running the AR summary report, the totals by batch report, looking for unposted transactions in GL. This is actually a report that's kind of like the entries by account report that we ran on the new file. So it steps you through how to correct your out of balance. So this is a good way. If you run the simple reports that we ran compared to GL and you find that they're not in balance, then you might want to use the reconciliation tool to find the issue. And actually, too, here's a tip. These reports are actually up here at the top. I'm going to get rid of some of these. It creates a tab for each one of them. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the AR page, go back to this page. I can look at the accounts payable tab, and it's the same thing. It's walking you through making sure everything is posted, running some reports, running these reconciliation reports, the summary, the totals by batch reports, and then some the payable reports. There's also some voiding entries in AP and AR can also cause issues, with your reconciliation. Those darn accounting dates can always be a problem. If you type something in wrong and then you go to correct it and you correct it in the wrong period, your AP or your AR might be correct, but your GL is still wrong because the correction went through in the wrong month. So that's another thing to look for that could cause you to be out of balance. Yeah. So you've got a couple of ways that you can do these reconciliations. You can do them simple and manually through each application just by running those aging reports and comparing to GL, or you can come in here with the reconciliation tool. And I've got examples. Like I said, I've got an example on page 14 of the dashboard. And the last page in your handout is just the last part of that dashboard. Actually, I'm sorry, page 15. My page numbers jumped out of whack there. Let's see. The very last page in your handout that I want to talk to you about is a checklist. I put together a checklist that you can, use at month end that just kind of walks back through what we just talked about, making sure everything is posted, running your aging reports in AR and AP, making sure job cost, everything has been posted. You want to do the sub applications first. General ledger should be the last thing that you actually close, but you are going to be running reports in general ledger to compare to those sub ledgers as far as reconciliation is concerned. All right, I've got some tips and reminders here. Lastly, remember that general ledger can go 6 months into the future, so you don't have to close it right away when you get to the end of the month. You may leave it open into the next month for a bit to make sure that all your entries can come through. Remember that job cost and contracts can only go 1 month into the future, and payroll is live all the time. It cannot go in the future at all. All right. You can always open up a prior period in general ledger and make corrections. And that's why when you get to the end of the year, we always recommend that you go ahead and move forward with all the other modules. General ledger should roll ahead as well. You can always go back and even open up the prior period and make entries. Remember that AP and AR don't have a closed month. You just keep rolling forward. Don't make entries to your cash, AP, AR, or cost accounts in general ledger or any other application outside of where that account number belongs, because that's going to throw your reconciliation off. Check your new files in GL and job costs frequently. I talk to people sometimes that never look in those files, and they've got stuff in there from forever. If you've got entries in those files that will never be posted, as soon as you have everything out of those files that you need, use file tools, and rename those files. Get them out of the way so that every time you post, you don't have a bunch of rejected entries. I wouldn't delete them because you never know when you might need to go back to one of them. What I would name them with is a date. So if I was going to rename the new GLT file today, I would call that file new 05/08/18, and it'll automatically put an extension of .glt on the end for you. Same with the job cost files. You should be checking those files at least at the end of each month. And the last reminder is, remember, corrections need to go back to the application of origin. That all kind of comes back to the reminder about not making entries to your accounts in GL. If you make the correction in GL, AP doesn't see it, AR doesn't see it, cash management doesn't see it, and then your reconciliation is off. All right, that takes us through our month-end and reconciliation session for today. Tina, did we have any other questions besides the sales tax question?
Nope, that was the only one so far. But if anybody has any, you want to send them to me right now on the chat, we can get to them.
If you think about them later too, if you email Tina, she can forward those to me, and I'll be happy to respond.
That's true. Yep.
But we'll give them a minute if they want to see if they have any questions right now.
Yep. Nope, not getting any so far, so I think we're all set for it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll have another class coming up here in a couple of weeks, so be sure you look for those those signups, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks, everybody.